Hey folks, Kilt-Man here. Kilt-Man at your services. How are you all? Hope you're all doing very, very well. Now, there is quite a rainstorm taking place outside the Kilt mansion right now. You can possibly hear it in the lulls. A bit of a battering on the conservatory and the ramparts. But anyway, we've got some music to play for you, and it's really great. It's vintage, it's classic, it's Hammer horror, Hammer films. 1957, The Curse of Frankenstein. No, it's pronounced Frankenstein. Peter Cushing, Robert Urquhart, Hazel Court, Valerie Gaunt and Christopher Lee as the creature. There he being right now. Now, I've discussed this film many times before, and I've played the soundtrack for you because you're hearing it right now, and this is the point of this, the Peter Cushing point. This is the point of this video. The score by James Bernard. He'd already done several for Hammer. Quatermass Experiments, Quatermass 2, and X the Unknown, which of course is just a Quatermass movie in all but name. It's pure Quatermass. And I've reviewed all of those movies in depth on the channel. Go seek them out. But he's fast becoming the composer de rigueur for Hammer. And he'd been sort of constrained. John Hollingsworth, who was the musical director for Hammer at the time, working with James Bernard. So, you know, we've got tight budgetary constraints. You can't have this, you can't have that. Just work with what you've got. A guy with like an upturned tin bath, and a guy with a kazoo, you know, and I just work with them. But for this one, James Bernard said, like, oh, come on. It's gothic, it's excessive, it's colourful, it's vibrant, it's Frankenstein. Please, can I have a little bit more? Please. And we're almost like a Peter Cushing style finger waggling. This could be our day. Let us do it now, today. Give me woodwinds, give me brass. And he was allowed to do so. And we got the first of his massive gothic, Leviathan, huge, iconic scores for Hammer. Of course, for the Dracula movies, woo, little choky bit there, made the voice rise an octave or two. For the Dracula movies, it became synonymous with dun dun dun, Dracula. And he did do it with Frankenstein as well. He did kind of spell out the Frankenstein title with another amazing sort of musical accompaniment. And anyway, you're hearing now the full score. I'll tell you, this is a nice Edwardian sort of piece, decorative piece for the early portions of the movie, where Baron Victor Frankenstein lost his parents but got lots of moolah, lots of money, big estate, big baronial, you know, castle, and he can make monsters. Played by the young Melvin Hayes. So the teenage, precocious, driven, arrogant, sneering, very snooty young Baron Frankenstein swiftly becomes the rather older Peter Cushing. And Peter Cushing has in tow Robert Urquhart as his mentor. And the thing is, the young Melvin Hayes version employs Robert Urquhart to play Paul Kremp, you know, to look after him and tutor him. And whereas Paul Kremp doesn't really age at all, I think they put a few greying whiskers and stuff like, but he's still younger by a good 9, maybe 10 years than Peter Cushing. So he remains eternally youthful, whilst Melvin Hayes becomes the never in his life looked young Peter Cushing. A champion, an all-star, a titan of terror, of course, but he never looked young. And I saw him today in the Sword of Sherwood Hammer movie, one of the few they did about, you know, Nottingham Forest, and Peter Cushing is playing the Sheriff of Nottingham, with one of those silly bald head haircuts and all that. And but he's doing a fair bit of daring do, and he's leaping about because, if anything, Peter Cushing always wanted to be athletic and really throw himself around the set and give himself things to do. Props Peter always had something in hand when the camera's on him and it's not moving about and it's just a dialogue scene. He'd pick things up and play with them and do stuff with them just to direct the audience's eyes to some activity, and he was renowned for this. Props Peter. But in so many movies, even when he got older, he would still be leaping about and trying to do stuff and, you know, just to be active. And I love that about him. I admire that. And the thing about the Hammer Frankenstein movies, and they start off here, 1957 was the time when Hammer really came of age. The year after, they would have Dracula, Christopher Lee again, and Peter Cushing as Van Helsing. Two titans of terror together so many times, obviously in The Mummy, and I've reviewed all these movies, you know this. But Peter Cushing and Hammer and Christopher Lee really made their name with this movie. They've done the sci-fi horrors of the Quatermass movies and X, The Unknown, and Prisoner of War Camp movies, different genre altogether. But horror and gothic horror, they really brought smack bang into the mainstream. Boosh! With this. Lurid Eastman colour. Gore. Yes, Kensington gore. And oh my god, heads being dropped into acid baths. Eyeballs on the loose. And that car crash of a makeup for Christopher Lee, done by Phil Leakey. Awesome stuff beyond belief, of course. And it set the trend. But here's the thing. Here's the rub, folks. Peter Cushing made his name with this movie and created one of his most indelible characters, Baron Victor Frankenstein. And he's the monster. And he always was the monster. Jimmy Sangster wrote the script. Terence Fisher directed it with vigour, as you'd expect. Sangster, not the best of wordsmiths, but it's very good. It's workmanlike, but it's fine. It's totally fine. What he's doing, he's not adapting Mary Shelley's novel Frankenstein or The New Prometheus, despite what he says. You got to remember, Universal owned the rights, and then Hammer got the rights from Universal partially, and but they couldn't use the Boris Karloff style makeup. And what Sangster does, he's not adapting Mary Shelley's novel, he's adapting the original Universal with Colin Clive and Boris Karloff Frankenstein. He's readapting that. Despite what he said, he claimed, I've never seen any Frankenstein movies before. Meaning all the Universal slew of stuff, which are all magnificent in their own way. Some are clunkers, but you know, it's the way it goes. He claims that, but he's not really working with Mary Shelley here. This is a reconfiguration of the Universal take on it. But what his masterstroke is, and Hammer's certainly the best movie they ever made for a serialized genre gothic picture, is that Victor is the monster. He's evil from the word go. He's driven. He's a bastard. He will sacrifice people. He'll, throughout the course of the movies, and let's face it, how many? Is it 6 movies? So Curse of Frankenstein, Revenge of Frankenstein, Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed, Frankenstein Created Woman. Oh God, there's a couple more. Taste the Blood of Frankenstein, Evil of Frankenstein, and then Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell in the 70s, when Cushing was very much older, but he visibly aged because of the loss of his dear wife Helen, and he started wearing, well, wigs, and the wig he wears in that is, it should have a character and a cast listing of its own, because it is a character in its own right. But anyway, the point of all this is, like, Victor Frankenstein is one of the greatest characters that Hammer created. because he evolves. He does more and more nefariously nasty things, and whereas the Dracula cycle, Christopher Lee, it's just the same old every single time. But Victor Frankenstein becomes the focus of all of the different movies. The monster is just an offshoot, and it even begins here. He's the central character of the Curse of Frankenstein, and he's absolutely bloody wonderful in it. Anyway, the point of this is Hammer themselves have now begun releasing their films in 4K. Glorious 4K restorations with tons and tons of extras and great big beautiful releases, big presentation boxes and all that. And I haven't got any of them. And I'm a big Hammer fan. I haven't got a single one. I've got all the films, but I haven't got these 4K releases, sadly. And but there, it's just the way things are, mate, you know. But I love all the music, and what ASTRADYNE sent to me was this. The 4K came out of Curse of Frankenstein last year, took lots of critical plaudits with this artwork. This staggeringly good artwork. It's amazing, it's beautiful, it's terrific stuff. Vigorous. There's Hazel Court, one of the most delectable of vintage scream queens. I mean, you had Barbara Steele and you had Barbara Shelley. Barbara Shelley, of course, worked for Hammer. But Hazel Court, oh dear lordy lord, look at that. And she plays Elizabeth, the cousin of Baron Victor, who's betrothed to marry him. And, you know, unbelievably, Peter Cushing's Victor Frankenstein has an affair with the maid Justine, played by Valerie Gaunt, who, no offence to Valerie Gaunt, is not a patch on this babylicious gothic delight. And he gets pregnant, but because he wants nothing to do with it, she threatens to expose his experiments and all he's been doing. There's been murders and the things you're getting up to in that locked laboratory down below. I'm going to find evidence against you. And of course she does. And she goes in there and she will encounter the rabid animal beast that is the creature. And Peter Cushing's Victor just like locks the door behind her. Here's the screams and his guttural growlings, and yeah, she gets done in. The whole film is told in flashback because Victor Frankenstein is about to face the guillotine, and he asks for a priest so he can confess all of this. And of course, he gets his friend, because the monster is destroyed in an acid bath at the end. There's no evidence. All the evidence points to him being a murderer. So, but I confessed it all. I created a monster. But Paul Kremp, he can explain and confirm my story. Who then denies everything because he's going to go off with Victor's bride. He's going to go off with her instead and leave him to face the whoosh, which, of course, you watch Revenge of Frankenstein, hasn't happened at all. And it's clever the way that the second movie manipulates what you think happened at the end of this movie is pretty clever. But anyway, the point of this video is the music from James Bernard. So you're hearing it in the background here, but what Hammer have done, when they did the 4K release back in 2025, so a year ago, for Curse of Frankenstein, they don't just remaster and rescan the visuals, they work on the audio as well. Now, James Bernard's score for Curse of Frankenstein, the original session recordings have been lost. Dissolved in a vat of acid, they've gone. They've completely gone. So, all the versions that you've heard since have been taken from the music and effects track, put on YouTube or released in some form or other. And then you have the fantastic Nick Rogue and the Prague Philharmonic re-recording, which you're hearing right now. And I've done videos on this recording, and it is sensational. It's the full score. They also did Dracula, as in horror Dracula. But when they started doing the 2025 4K restoration of Curse of Frankenstein, they realised we can take some clean cuts of music from the music and effects track and we can put them together and we can make suites of music out of the score. Now, it's not the full score. The full score runs for something like 33, 34 minutes. And although it sounds measly, all they could get was 13 minutes of clean music and restore that from the 4K remastering. And they put it out on a glorious, 2 singles, 2 45 RPM singles in mono, glorious original mono, but it is James Bernard's original music as synced with the movie. And it's look at this release. That's a glorious new artwork which festoons the new 4K release. Carries on the back there, and we have this lovely gatefold, the confrontation of the creator and the created. He's such a bastard. He's not content with bringing puppy dogs back to life. Think Herbert West Reanimated, which is all a riff on Frankenstein, obviously. And if you notice as well, the original posters and the artwork and the font is a lurid, livid green. Of course, what did Reanimated do? The serum, the reanimation fluid, is a lurid, livid green. Because green's icky, it's undeady, it's that kind of thing, it's the dead brought back. And of course, Boris Karloff, back in the original 1930s movies, black and white movies, they painted him green because green showed up more grey in black and white film. So it gave him the more cadaverous, undead look about him. So green is definitely the de rigueur colour for Frankenstein's monster, his creation. So anyway, 2 singles comprising 4 suites of music. And little secrets here. This was sent to me and it arrived the other day, and I haven't listened to it until, well, now. I've put the first single in to the old vintage Ferguson, old turntable, old record deck, record player, which you guys of yore have seen a few times. I've been playing a lot of vinyl on this because it's something, it puts out one hell of a wallop of sound, albeit only mono from that speaker there, but Jesus, it throws it out. I will not be playing it too loud because it does throw a lot of sound out. But anyway, you get a fair bit of write-up from my old mate, I know this guy, David Hookvale, who is a biographer of James Bernard, a fabulous musician and composer himself, and an author. And he wrote a bit of blurb on the inside there. And just to show you a little bit more, we have another inlay card. Again, lurid green, an old vintage bit of artwork there. But on the back, we have some more blurbage from John Mansell, author of The Symphony Behind the Screams, Hammer's Musical Heritage. And it's just like a bit of background as to how this came about and James Bernard's involvement with Hammer. All great stuff. And the singles themselves, well, I should show you. They are a livid green. A snotty green, but there you go. It's green. So what we're going to do, we're going to turn the full score off, which is playing in a fantastic Nick Rogue's version. Is Nick Rain, not Nick Rogue. Nick Rogue's the director. Nick Rain, I should say. Oh, I do apologise for that. To all the Nicks out there, you've got to get your surnames right. Nick Rain and the City of Prague Philharmonic Orchestra. It is a wonderful version. It's the full score and it sounds incredible. But this is a piece of history and a piece of real, you know, for collectors, this is outstanding. I do apologise, there's a small, frisky Moggy trying to get out of the room right now. Here you are. Go on, go on. Come on. Go on, there you go. Yes. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to put Suite 1, which is like side A, the first. Oh. Oh. No, we didn't expect this, did we? Please. Bloody cats. Yeah, stop meowing. Come on, and get off there. You're not helping things. Go on, away with you. Oh, and incidentally, down here is a very great facsimile of the frock coat that the creature wears, that Christopher Lee wears in the movie, which of course was gorgeously recreated for Lucio Fulci's The House by the Cemetery, for Dr. Fraudstein down in the basement creating bodies and new living things to keep himself alive from his murder victims. Anyway, right, let's start this. And the cat is now providing accompaniment. So this is the introduction. This is the main title. There is a Frankenstein theme, which would become Dracula. It's great, isn't it? You know, it's pure Gothic, brooding, rousing, death, debauchery, desecration. What you can't see, that cat is chasing something around. A fly, a midge, a spectre, an orb perhaps. So remember, this is pure mono, as it would be. There's a sense of, you know, dark doings. And then we enter this sweetly Edwardian stage of the young Melvin Hayes playing the young Baron Victor. Studious, I want to learn about cadavers and bodies, bringing life back. And he swiftly overtakes his mentor, his tutor, Robert Erck at Paul Kremp. And then, as he gets older, takes Paul Kremp on as an assistant. He was his mentor, but then he becomes the assistant. And the voice of conscience, Victor, you know, this is abhorrent, we can't do this, it's monstrous. No. This is very classical stuff, you know. James Bernard was obviously a student of the classics. See how they've mixed that together. It's the first time I'm hearing this vinyl. So they've masterfully sieged different elements together. Obviously, you can't have any of the effects in there. This is to capture the clean music. That may well have been it. That was it for the first side. As I say, there's only 13 minutes of music. Doesn't sound like a great deal, but it's all they could achieve. So, second side. Now, even though I'm doing the auto on this old decrepit turntable is not bringing the needle across to a 45. It'll do it on a 33, but it seems reluctant to reach across. So I've got to do it manually. So now he's got woodwinds and he's got percussion, he's got brass. You're getting what becomes signature James Bernard. Listen to this. I mean, he literally was one of the progenitors of the sort of Mickey Mousing shock scares. You see how he's intermingling that Edwardian sort of, hey, everything's okay. A baronial estate. We've got plenty of money. I've got a lovely wife to be. But I've got my work, my passion, my obsession. Eyeballs, brains, and he'll commit murder to get a good brain. A loose banister, a slight nudge, but Paul Kremp is against all this and turns his back on Victor. But Victor will bring him back, albeit reluctantly, because I think Paul is like terrified for Elizabeth's life and well-being with this lunatic, But also, like, Victor is able to intimidate and he's got evidence, he can blackmail them. No, Paul, your hands are not clean. Paul, you've been part of all this. We took the guillotine, the hanged man, we used his body parts, we did this, we did that. This creature is as much your creation as it is mine. The scores for Quatermass 2 and Exi Unknown are great, but they're very, very sparse, and there's not a lot of elements in there musically. But here, he's getting full reign of a much larger orchestra. So much more instrumentation taking place, and it would become his signature. I think he did 24, maybe 25 scores for Hammer. All of which are extraordinary, but also indelibly James Bernard. Listen to those strings. It's unpleasant. It's kind of angular and stabbing, like cutting into dead flesh. That's the thing. You're not getting a lot of music. I totally appreciate that, but one of these is so historically relevant. So that is the first single of the 2 singles. So let's get into the second one. So remember this lurid, snotty green. And I think Hammer are going to start releasing a lot more soundtracks. Possibly, hopefully, complete ones as well. So here we go, here's the second disc. So suite 3, yeah. So we'll probably get a lot more bombast now as the creature begins to start being violent. The reveal of the creature, who's a pure car crash mess. Victor hears him and he's all bandaged up and all that. Like Victor runs in, and in an over-cranked camera which zooms in as he pulls the bandages across his face, from his face, and then he reveals that, and Victor's like, oh my god, and he strides towards Victor. Christopher Lee towering above picks up Victor like, and does, you know, the time-honoured throttling and lift off the floor at the same time and crunch the neck. And Cushing, of course, you know, he's like, his eyes are bugging out. He's like, he's giving it loads. And then Robert Eckert comes in with a big chair over the back of Christopher Lee. We did it. He's alive. You're like, are you insane? He tried to kill you, you know. But it's a success. Paul, we've done it. And the monster breaks loose and kills a couple of people, the blind hermit and his grandson, I think it is, and then gets shot in the head, you know, by Paul Kremp. Oh, and then a bit of Kensington gore comes down his face. Super shock for audiences back then. And then he gets brought back. They think he's dead, but of course Victor's not going to let it go. He won't let it lie. You know, I can bring you back, and he does. He brings him back. Now his brain was a bad brain, because even though they thought they put a good brain in there, there's a bit of a tussle takes place, and the brain gets damaged. So none of these guys ever put a good brain which lasts and is good in any of these decrepit craniums. They're always warped or murderous, you know, or vindictive, vengeful. And so he brings it back, and of course the brain's even more messed up now. But of course he allows it to kill Justine. And then Elizabeth goes peeking around, and then she's going to be in trouble. But in a pang of, I don't know, is it conscience? Is it really conscience? Is he looking out for his wife? Who knows? Or is he just doesn't want his creation to do anything stupid again, like jeopardize all what they've learnt so far. And on the rooftop balcony sort of confrontation, he manages to save. Well, actually, he doesn't. He shoots her by mistake. This is Peter Cushing. Shoots her by mistake, and and then sets fire to the creature, who falls through a skylight into the acid bath. Woof, gone. So all the evidence about how I didn't commit these murders, the creature did. No, but where's this creature then? Well, there's an acid bath. So you haven't got the evidence there, right? It's there for you, Milado. Right, we've got one final track to play, one final suite. It really isn't a lot, is it? It's kind of hitting me now that there's not a great deal. 13 minutes that they managed to save or find. So this will be from the finale, as I just described. I mean, you're hearing this nice and vintage style on an old mono turntable. And this thing, I've done a video on this particular record player. I think it came out in 1970. So this is massively vintage itself, you know. Not quite as old as the music we're listening to, or the film itself, but, you know. This artwork is by Greg Staples. Just show you again. Look at that. Look at that. It's like you're gonna play patter cake. Yeah. But I bring you back to that. Barbara Shelley was an amazing beauty, but Hazel Court was the one that I kind of fancy. But both redheads as well, which worked obviously with the fabulous colour aesthetic for the Hammer movies. But lavish gatefold, isn't it? Just gorgeous. So this is shivery suspense stuff. This is clearly Elizabeth, you know, because she's prowling around and the monster sees her. The monster's above her and sees her. Yeah. Finale. Oh, it's great. Oh, of course. The Kenneth Branagh version. It's funny how most versions of Frankenstein, in fact almost all, will have Victor as, you know, he's not that bad. You know, he's trying to do this thing which is ungodly and evil, because he's blinkered, and then when he creates the monster, he always shuns it, like in Mary Shelley's novel. He turns his back on it. Oh God, I made a big mistake. This is ridiculous. Peter Cushing's Victor Frankenstein is so the opposite. It doesn't matter how many times he does it, and it all fucks up on him big time and becomes an evil, horrible, nasty mess of a situation involving him murdering people, using the creature to murder people for him, and committing rape and blackmail, and he's just an evil sod. And every single time he does this, it ends in disaster. The law's after him. He has assumed identities. As the movie cycle goes on, he's doing this, that and the other, and he's using people and corrupting people and never listens to reason because he's so driven and singular of vision. He never learns. He never learns. Even right at the very end of Frankenstein the Monster from Hell, which I genuinely love, and I've got the mask. The mask for that is here somewhere. I forgot to get it out to put it on display behind me. I forgot about that. Sorry about that, folks. Dave Prowse as a big simian, Cro-Magnon, you know, beast man sort of thing, with a penchant for broken glass and you know, and stabbing people, and I love that movie. I've reviewed that as well. I think it's a great film, but even then, he will not learn. This doesn't work. Every time you do this, Baron, it ends in death and despair, and you haven't got it sussed. You're bringing them back, but they're evil. They're corrupted. That's obviously someone making a ghastly mistake in the laboratory, and the police have cottoned on. But without a doubt, Hammer's Frankenstein movies are a defining cycle, infinitely better than the Dracula movies, which is just the same old rigmarole every single time. But Frankenstein, although he, under Peter Cushing's expert tutelage, he never really becomes a warm, likable, empathetic, sort of compassionate guy who's thinking like, well, what I'm doing here could actually help mankind. He never thinks like that. That's how it might start off. but he becomes so focused on like, I must create life, I must create another body, put it together, and this time it's going to work. He doesn't really think about, look, you've actually done some great stuff here. It could be fine-tuned at this level, and then we can put it out to the medical boards and scientific bods around the world, and they can really help you make this work. No, we must move on to the next level, the next step. And that's him every single time. We can't tell anyone just yet because I haven't sussed it out properly. And and it just goes on and on and on, endlessly regurgitating the same old mistakes, albeit with different monsters, different characters, and different incidents. But I love the Hammer Frankenstein cycle. I think it's tremendous. Apart from one, and you know the one I mean, and it doesn't star Peter Cushing. It has Ralph Bates, and it's called The Horror of Frankenstein, and it's an abomination of a movie. It really is. But all the rest are fantastic, and they are all different. Unlike the Dracula movies, they are all different. Yes, we are all different. I'm not. Right, I'm going to finish now, not with the vinyl, but with the actual score itself, the full score. As I say, re-recorded by Nick Rain. Not Nick Rogue, as I said stupidly earlier on. You can hear it a lot more clarity now. Not to knock the endeavours here, and I think that's well worth pursuing. There's more that Hammer could do with music and effects tracks for different other movies, and also put out the full scores, but the recording sessions are still, they're still there, so they can re-release those. But listen to the woods here. Those spirally strings. Isn't that wonderful, that? Ooh. And this, of course, this is Justine's fate, locked in with the creature, and the father of her child. So he allows his extramarital affair, his mistress, to go and meet her demise whilst carrying his own unborn child as well. So right from the word go, this he's not a good guy, but Peter Cushing makes him so interesting that you become addicted to it. No matter what depravity he comes up with next, you're watching, you're transfixed. Curse of Frankenstein is wonderful. I wish I got the 4K. It's now going for silly money, and I didn't buy it at the time. But hey ho. So they know all. Nick Rain and his orchestra have all of James Bernard's music. They didn't use all the music he created for the movie. I think it says here they used. Hang on. It should say on the back of this. Allow me to quote. With principal photography finishing for The Curse of Frankenstein in early January 1957, the film moved into post-production, and by the beginning of April, the music had been composed, arranged, orchestrated, recorded and synced to the edited film. 16 of James Bernard's compositions were used in the final film, and those original session recordings are now lost. During Hammer's 2025 4K feature restoration, 30 minutes of clean music were extracted from the film's mixed down music and effects track and are presented here as 4 suites, which you've heard. But even then, they didn't use all of James Bernard's music. 16 of the tracks he created were used for the movie itself. But that's nothing unusual there. Most film composers create far more music than what you're going to hear on the film itself. And a lot of the time, the film gets cut down, so the music, you've got to lose bits of music because it doesn't fit the finished movie, and the composer has to go in and like, sort of recompose bits and redesign, reorchestrate and re-record music to fit the finished theatrical print. Isn't that great? Boom. And like Peter Cushing, even though he creates this monster, he's a complete bastard to it as well. You know, you should be proud. It's your son. You created this. Look after it. You know, be proud of it. But no, well, it does kind of go for him straight away and throttle him. Not a good start. But you know, it's living as a caged animal, an experimental animal. You know, beaten up and abused, and like living on offal and tripe and shite and all that. Like, get up. You know, oh. And Paul Kremp says to me, look, Paul. He responds to commands. Get up, sit down, walk towards me, and all this kind of shit. Like, and Paul Kremp's like, oh yeah, so this wonderful intellectual brain that you wanted to put in there, and that's all he can do. Act like a performing bear in a circus, you know. It's that. It's that brooding dark underscore. You know, cellos, whereas the violins reach, you know, the shrieky bits. And obviously woodwinds. For that. It's like a bunch of deranged squirrels let loose, you know, on a harp. So obviously, folks, if you want the full score, you can get the full score. And on the Nick Rain and Prague Philharmonic, you've got Dracula as well, which I have played for you before. So you've got that, and you've got Curse of Frankenstein together, full complete scores. But if you want that bit of vinyl, which is so delectably cool, because it's such a great package. I think it's sold exclusively through Hammer's own site. You have to go there. ASTRADYNE sent it to me, so, but you know, that's where you go to for it. And just to show you again, so it's 2 singles, gloriously green. You get that as well. You get some interesting blairbage, and you get it in this absolutely wonderful presentation gatefold with more blairbage from the old mate David Hookvale in here. So I was pointing to him like that was David Hookvale. David Hookvale as the Mummy. And of course Christopher Lee would play the Mummy shortly after this. Robert Urquhart, who plays Paul Kremp, if you look at this movie, he looks, and I kid you not, like a cross between Russell Crowe and Niall McGuinness. Niall McGuinness, Zeus in Jason the Argonauts, and of course, the Mad Warlock in Night of the Demon, Professor Carswell, Julian Carswell. So it's a combination of the two. Scottish actor, Robert Eckert. The voice of conscience, reason, but he still goes along with it. You know, Reanimator does the same thing. You've got Jeffrey Combs as Herbert West, Reanimator, but you've got Bruce Abbott, is it Bruce Abbott? Playing his mate Dan, who's along for the ride, and oh god, and the more he gets suckered in, because it's his mate, his roommate, and he's now part of all the dead bodies and that. So it's a very similar take on Frankenstein. Of course, Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft wrote Herbert West Reanimator. Influenced certainly by Mary Shelley, but the film Reanimator definitely takes in a lot more of the Frankenstein sort of mythology. And a bit of George Romero, for good measure. So, see, this score starts off with that Edwardian sort of, aristocracy and, the finer things in life. Snootiness. But it very quickly goes into all of this great shock and awe. You just know who's on the hoof right now. It's Peter Cushing legging it again. How high are we going to go? Tussly tussle. Peter, Christopher Lee with that mad milky eye. You can see it there. So he's gone into. Has he got the acid bath right now? And then Victor is going to face the guillotine. He's got the priest in there. He's confessed all, but Robert Eckert, Paul Krempus, denied all knowledge. Paul! And he even goes for Paul again. Like, it shows that even when he's trying to be nice and he needs someone, his egotistical nature is still too strong. His drive, if they're not going to do my bidding and agree with me, and that's the quintessential mad scientist. His singular vision is all that counts, even though it's just completely punctuated by ruination all the way through. Every single endeavour he's done has ended in disaster, death. Yeah, the guillotine, the shadow of it is there. This is the doom. But he gets away with it, you know. Who gets... It's the priest. And who gets away? Yeah, the Baron. And then he takes on Francis Matthews in Revenge of the Frankenstein and creates Michael Gwynn. A very sympathetic monster, in fact. A lot of critics say that Revenge of Frankenstein, which is the direct follow-on to this, is the better movie. In many ways it is. It has a much better script. But this is the one that breaks all the traditions. It's universal, it's a classical monster, classical story, but told with punchy editing, incredible makeup effects, a bit of gore, and a lot of taboo breaking, you know. I mean, the original, James Whale's original Frankenstein is taboo breaking. Because Colin Clive as Frankenstein, I know now I know what it feels like to be God, you know, and all this. You can't say things like that. And play around with ripe cadavers rifled from their graves. Anyway, folks, there you go. That's a sort of a musical voyage through Hammer's first Frankenstein movie, courtesy of James Bernard and Hammer's delicious release of the music, the original James Bernard music. It's quite overpowering, isn't it, really? But the original music, if you want to hear James Bernard's original score done by himself, orchestrated by himself, you know, conducted by himself, then that's the only way to get it. Otherwise, it's re-recordings all the way. But it's well worth it, well worth it. I heard it for the first time there with you guys. And although it's clearly only a very condensed version, it's still a delight to hear. So, folks, I have been and always shall be Kilt-Man. So please, in the meantime, this ever, be wary of your experimentations, for you know not how it will turn out in between time. Please keep it kilted, keep it Celtic, and I'm going to see you all. And Melvin Hayes may have been tremendous in It Ain't Half Hot Mum. He is as Gloria, he's fantastic. But he's plummy, obnoxious, arrogant, and a complete and utter annoyance in Curse of Frankenstein. How the hell he became Peter Cushing, it's beyond me. Anyway, folks, I'm out of here.